There's this big zip line thing, and there's 15 zip lines that you just work through a course. They have two lines on this one, so two people can go at the same time, one next to the other. And I look up, I kid you not, the clip thing on the cable is smoking and sparking. And I get right in the middle of the thing, and it stops. And I am not going anywhere. And I'm dangling over the lake. And I look down, and there's a couple guys fishing, and they're looking up at me like, what the hell is this guy doing? Kipp, what's up, man? Great to see you. I hope that you had a good week. It's Friday as of this recording, and looks like we're both trying to close up shop for the week.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good week. You know, here's my mantra. I was thinking about this morning. Someone reached out to me on social media while I was at the gym, and they're like, hey, how are things going? And my response to them was, I'm in it. There's a bunch of things that I've been somewhat of a passenger or passive around. Mm-hmm. And I'm in this space of like, no, that's not going to work for me. I need to be a little bit more assertive, aggressive, and go after whatever it is that is bothering me and or that I want, and not just sit back and wait. So I'm actually in a good place in the middle of it though, right? Like I'm kind of like, oh man, I need to do these things. There's some uneasiness, right? But I was also thinking about this, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is it's actually in the unknown that anything's possible. And so the unknown is what's required for possibility to be created, but it's also very uncomfortable, right? When you're not sure what's next, or what are you doing, or it's uneasy. But
yeah, and I mean, it has to be in the unknown, because if possibility existed in the known, then you'd already be achieving new possibilities, and you're not. So it's got to be found somewhere other than where you're currently looking, right? But you're right. It is very uncomfortable. And really unsettling at times and uneasy. But I think the key is just to know that you're doing it for the right reason. You know that you're knocking on doors that haven't previously been open to you, and it's the price that you have to pay. That's the thing that I found so often with so many men, is that everybody wants what everyone else has, but nobody wants to do what everybody else does. So I might say, for example, well, I would love to be a jiu-jitsu black belt. Kipp, how long have you been training?
16 years, 17 years.
Okay, so are you willing to put in 17 years? Well, no. Okay, then you don't get to have that. Or people will say, oh, Ryan, I'd love to have a podcast with the reach of yours. Well, we've done 1,600 episodes. Are you willing to do 1,600 episodes? I don't know. I'm kind of busy with other things. Okay, then you don't get to have that. And we just live in this really easy modern times where we can actually have a lot of the result without the effort. I think about food, for example. We're in September. A lot of my buddies are hunting elk right now, and they're out in the field, and they're putting in 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 miles, backwoods stuff, packing hundreds of meat off the mountain. And you don't have to do that. You could just go to the grocery store and pick up a pack of meat from the grocery store. So we've gotten so accustomed to just having what we want. If you're a little warm, just go over to the thermostat and turn the AC on a little bit more. So we've become so accustomed to all these creature comforts at the expense of realizing, oh, when there is something worthwhile, I don't get to just have it. I actually have to put in the work. Sometimes for years, 10 years for Order of Man, 17 years as training jiu-jitsu. Like it's just what is required.
Yeah. And most people find themselves wanting without clarity of the price. And so then there's just this upset constantly.
Right.
Oh man, I wish. Oh, I wish. And it's like, well, stop wishing, actually just get clear what's required. And are you willing to do it or not? And if you're not, then stop. That's okay. Stop wanting it. You know, if you're not willing to put the work in. Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah,
there's a lot of things that I don't want. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And the clarity helps us, right? Know that. But most of us don't get to the clarity side of that.
Yeah.
So our topic this month, the question that you posed to the Iron Council, our brotherhood, to learn more, orderofman.com/Iron Council, as well as our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/orderman, was around building relationships with people you love and people that we want to serve, and the importance of that. And I actually, when I thought about this question, I don't know, this just entered my mind, and I kind of want to ask you this question first before we get into these specific questions. But there's a balance to things, right? I mean, we've talked about this somewhat, and my fear was that I didn't want this not to be addressed, right, as part of our answers today. But our ability to foster relationships is a hell of a lot easier when other elements of our lives are buttoned up, right?
Oh, of course.
It's easier to do great at work when things are good at home. It's easier to do things well at home when things are good at work, right? And even though we're doing specific topics here, part of the battle plan and part of what we do in the Iron Council is around the importance of covering multiple elements of our lives, because we're not naive to assume that, like, oh no, just double down on relationships, these other things don't matter. They absolutely do matter. And so I wanted you to talk through that a little bit briefly around the importance of that balance before we kind of dive in specifically around relationships, if that's okay.
Yeah. And whenever anybody says balance, look, I don't want to get into semantical games. I just want to describe concepts, and we use words to describe concepts, and certain words mean different things to different people. So I'm not trying to do the gotcha thing or use words that I'm trying to get to the understanding. And what I want people to wrap their heads around is get that concept of balance out of your head and instead use the word balancing. Because balancing is a verb. Balance is a state or an objective. So I think that men believe that if they get it just right, whatever that formula is between work and play and serving and financial and taking care of themselves and pouring into their kids, if they get those proportions just right, then everything will be perfect. And you might get it just right, but our lives are dynamic. And so one of the relationships that you have may require more of your attention at certain times throughout your life and the other person's life. And that may require more of you in that arena than maybe work or your own personal development, which is why I like balancing. If you think about any activity where you have to balance, whether it's something like jujitsu or surfing or skateboarding or snowboard, skiing, whatever, it's a series of 1,000 little movements to keep you upright and going down that hill or riding that wave. It's you constantly adjusting left to right, back and forth, moving forward, leaning this way, leaning up. It's just constant adjustments. And that might sound exhausting in the realm of your life, but that's what you need to do, is you need to adjust constantly to the factors and the considerations in your life. If one of your children is really struggling with something, then I'm going to pour more into my children. I'll give you an example. I was invited to go to Dallas next week to go on a podcast, and I'm very much looking forward to going on the podcast and meeting other people there. And it's a great opportunity. Well, I looked at my youngest son's lacrosse schedule. He's got his last game on Tuesday night. And he's made comments about how important it is that I'm there. Yeah, and he said, "Oh, Dad, thank you for coming." Or one day I was really distracted. I was on my phone, and I didn't think he was really paying attention. But after the game, he said, "Why were you on your phone the whole time?" So he's keenly aware of the fact that I am there and if I'm present or not when I am there. So it's really important to him. So I called the team up that I was going to go meet with in Dallas, and I said, "Hey, I want to come out. I just can't do Tuesday. It's my son's last lacrosse game." That's a decision that I'm making, and they're good about it. They said, "Great, we'll bump it back 2 to 3 weeks, and no issue." But that's the act of balancing, is that I want my son to know that his lacrosse games and him are important to me, and I'm willing to sacrifice work in order for that achievement, in order for that connection to take place. And maybe in another aspect, maybe if it was a different podcast, or maybe if I was in the middle of a book release or something else, I may have made a different decision. But that was the decision I made based on all of the factors, all of the considerations, not just the one-dimensional consideration that most people look at.
Excellent. Yeah, and hopefully you don't mind me doing that. I think that lays a good groundwork for us then to jump in specifically around connection.
And I think it's great. And I think we ought to really consider how the decisions we're making impact other people, not only from the perspective of our relationships with them, but also the other duties, obligations, and responsibilities we as men have.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Let's hop into it, man. So questions from the Iron Council. William Pennell. I feel like I do a good job serving my family, and my wife does an extraordinary job serving me. Where I falter sometimes is communicating what I need and want. My wife often tells me to speak loudly and clearly into the microphone, but there are times I find it difficult to convey what I want and need. Any suggestions on how to improve in this area?
It takes a little practice. It takes a lot of practice, actually, because communicating your thoughts is probably something that you grew up thinking it wasn't the right thing to do. And I think this might be a generational thing. It's getting better, but my parents' era was children are to be seen and not heard. And so that, like, we have these programs that are running through our mind constantly where, hey, you're not supposed to express your ideas. If you express your ideas, you're putting people out. You even hear it now. You're being selfish, or you're bragging, or you're making yourself the center of attention, or you're not serving other people the way you ought to. And so all of these little phrases and these mindsets make us believe that if we're communicating what we desire, that somehow we're putting other people out. And I don't think that's the case. Your wife clearly wants you to communicate with her because she's suggesting that you do. So what I would spend some time doing is, when I go into certain environments, I would spend more time before I get into the environment thinking about what I want. So let's say this weekend, you and your wife want to go on a date. Instead of just showing up and just hoping it all goes well, go with some intentionality. What do you want to accomplish out of the date? What conversations do you want to have with this date? What is your goal and objective? Is it to get closer to each other? Is it to break away from the kids for the weekend, to unwind? Is it to have deep and meaningful conversations? Is it later that evening for the purpose of physical connection? But start thinking about what you want out of those moments, and then it's just a matter of communicating it. And you might say something like, hey, hon, I'm really excited to go out this weekend. Man, I feel like I've been disconnected to you because I've been so busy with this project at work, and I just want to let you know I don't really want to talk about work tonight. What I'd like to do is talk about the kids, or future planning, or what our fears and goals and hopes and desires, or whatever it might be. Are you good with that? And of course, she's going to feel led. She's going to feel important. She's going to feel like you have some intentionality and thoughtfulness behind you taking her out on a date, rather than just showing up and checking it off the box. Or off the list, rather. So, yeah, I would spend time thinking about what you want out of these interactions, because only then will you have the ability to communicate them to her.
What do you think the risk is, Ryan, that stops men from communicating as well? Like, I understand that we might have some generational elements that kind of has perpetuated this way of thinking, but what's the cost? Like, what is the drawback? What's the fear that you think that most men have of, like, oh, I'm going to keep this to myself?
I would say fear of looking foolish is certainly one of those things. You know, if you say something, somebody might mock or mimic or ridicule you for having that thought. I would say the fear of looking silly. I would also say the fear of putting other people out. I know a lot of men who say, "Hey, I don't want to cause any imposition, or I don't want to put you out or anything like that." And they think that if they're sharing their ideas, that somehow it comes at the expense of other people. So they don't want to be selfish. But yeah, I think for the most part, it's just a fear of how it will be received. Even think about really difficult conversations that you might need to have with your wife. there's also a fear that there's going to be some sort of punishment. And that punishment might be that a woman you love is no longer wanting to be in a relationship, or that she'll be mad and it'll ruin the evening and you'll have to deal with the fallout of it for several days or several weeks, whatever it is. So there's the risk of repercussion as well. But I don't know. I've had a lot of great conversations with my girlfriend, specifically just over the past, I would say 2 to 3 weeks. And not all of them are comfortable conversations. We talk about the future. We talk about what we agree with and what we don't agree on. And I always walk away feeling better about the relationship. But if she was here, I think she would say that she's willing to risk the relationship, as am I, in order to gain alignment and to make sure that we have the connection that it feels like we do. Because it's important to both of us, if we're thinking about what takes place in the future, that there is some chemistry and there is alignment. And the only way you find that out is by discussing and talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. All right. Jeremy Kofi or Coffee. Is it, do you know Jeremy's, how do you pronounce Jeremy's
I think
last
it's Coffee.
name?
Sorry, I think
Jeremy.
it's Coffee.
Is it Coffee? What are some indicators you look for in determining a relationship is no longer serving the other person? Do you have advice on pulling back without burning bridges?
Wait, say the first part again.
Yeah. So what are some indicators you look for to determining a relationship is no longer serving either person?
I think that generally it could be apathy. If things start to become, or maybe indifference is maybe a better way to say that, where the way that you show up is not important, or the way that the other person shows up feels unimportant. That's a level of indifference that says that there's some real issues going on in the relationship. I mean, if you guys are mad at each other, there's still a level of care, because people get mad at the people that they value their opinion and they value who they are. You wouldn't be that mad if you weren't vested in whatever it is you're upset about. It's when a person becomes indifferent to what's going on that the relationship is in serious trouble. I would also say that the level of selfishness might increase. You might be willing to sacrifice time with that person increasingly for your own pursuits and desires, and the other party starts taking your thoughts and ideas and considerations into mind and starts to isolate or becomes more and more selfish. And that might mean, it doesn't exclusively mean that, but it could mean that something's going on with the relationship. I would also say any sort of changed behavior is an indicator, because we all have personalities and we all show up in certain ways. And if you've been with a romantic relationship for a long period of time, 20 years, for example, I mean, you already know who that person is. They know who you are. If that behavior starts to change, like she starts to go out with her girlfriends all the time and she never did that before, or she becomes indifferent, like I said, and she was always very empathetic, or she gets closed off. Maybe she doesn't ask for your opinion anymore, but she used to really be interested, invested in what you had to say about factors of life. Those are behavioral changes that really need to be addressed and considered as you guys move forward. What was the second part of the question though, Kipp?
Do you have advice on pulling back without burning bridges?
Yeah, I think it would probably depend on the type of relationship. I hope we're not just talking about romantic relationships here, because I don't really think, especially if you're committed to somebody and you made commitments and promises, that you just have the luxury of pulling back, so to speak. But
Pulling
if
back.
it's somebody
like unannounced pulling back. Yeah. Like,
right. If it's a friend or an acquaintance, maybe that relationship is no longer, that's what I envision it is. Maybe it's a lifelong friend. Maybe this person's toxic. Maybe they're just not helping them in life anymore. I really don't think you owe as much as maybe you think you do. If you feel like you need to have a conversation about it. So Kipp, if you and I are really good friends, if for whatever reason I didn't want to maintain that friendship with you, depending on the severity of what went down between us, I would probably, the more severe it was, what went on between us, I would definitely be more likely to communicate it with you. So, hey, Kipp, you know what? Like, man, we've been friends for a long time, but the past couple of months, we've butted heads. We had some issues that we fought over with our families. And I want to tell you, I do appreciate you as a friend, but I need to step back for these reasons and reevaluate how we're going to move forward, because I'm not sure if I want to, but I want to look at it from a different perspective. I think I could probably say that if it was a severe incident. If it was just something where maybe we weren't close friends, we were casual acquaintances and we hung out every once in a while, I really wouldn't feel the need to explain my departure to you. I would gradually phase conversations out, phase communication out, phase family functions and outings together out, and I would just replace those with other relationships that I'm interested in developing. And I think that can happen very organically. But I would say if there was some critical event or something that happened, then I would be more, and especially if I'm invested in that relationship, I'd be more likely to bring it up than just to ignore it and walk away.
Yeah, for sure. Travis Gare, I'm trying to get back into the lives of my son and his mother, sorry. I've been on and off for 10 years. I'm making changes to my life and we're working things out. But my issue is the patient and acknowledgement. I understand that there's been a lot of hurt caused with both of them, and it's going to take some time. But when things are going good, it doesn't seem like it makes a difference to either of them. I know it does, but how do I get over needing that self-gratification or the guess selfishness of being acknowledged or doing good or making the changes? How do I humble myself and put myself aside and just accept and enjoy the time that I do have with him and understand that things will fall into place? I just got to be consistent.
Yeah. Well, you answered, I wrote down consistency as part of this.
A romantic, sorry. I want to clarify. Do you think getting back into a romantic relationship with the mom, or just like he's been absent from his kid's life and he's trying to be more involved, and because of that, he's, obviously some level of relationship needs to be established with the mom?
I think it's that. I think after 10 years, I think he's trying to get in good graces with his son's mom so that he can have a better relationship with him. And if it is romantic, I don't know that the answer really changes all that much, but it doesn't sound like that to me. It sounds like he's more interested in the relationship with his son than he is in the relationship with his son's mom, his ex-wife. I don't know the exact situation.
Got it.
Yeah, so he answered it first by saying being consistent. That's number one. And it would be really easy for me just to say, hey, just focus on the journey and focus on doing the right things and letting everything else fall where it may. And that's true. That is true. But you already know that. He's already talking about that. But how do you do that? One strategy that I've been using in my life, because I do have a similar circumstance with all of my children to different degrees, and also with my ex, is I don't like this phrasing, but I think it'll help people understand the game of connection. And I don't know why that resonates with me, but when I look at things as a game, not as it's insignificant, that's not what I'm saying, or not as if this is just silly games and doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. It does. So that's not the way I'm using the term game. But when I talk about game, the reason that it lands with me is because there's rules to the game and there's ways to be better at the game than you currently are. And so I measure my performance in the game of connection based on how good I am at playing the game, not the overall outcome. So here's a great way to look at this.
Yeah.
In the world of jiu-jitsu, when guys start training at the same time, let's say there's 5 guys and they start training on or about the same time, it's hard to know that you're getting better. You don't actually think you're getting better because everybody's getting better. And so you're all elevating.
Yeah, you're on the escalator.
Roughly the same degree. And so it's like, man, I keep getting beat by the same guys, or I keep beating the same guys, and I feel like But if you were to take that and give it now an outside perspective, you could see, oh, wait, I actually am getting better because now I'm training with new guys and I can see my progress in relation to how other people train. And it's the same thing with the relationship is you could be getting better, but not experience the outcome that you desire. So does that mean you're not doing the right thing? Does that mean you're not improving? No, I think it just takes a long time, especially when you're talking about 10 years of potential alienation, 10 years of stories that your son may have heard, 10 years of assumptions that your son has made up in his mind about why you haven't been as present as either of you would have liked. And that's going to take a long time of consistency. But does that mean that you're not getting better at it? No, it just means it takes time. And trust me, they see it, they acknowledge it. And I'd be willing to bet that they're waiting for you to fail. And I know that sounds pessimistic, but it's really important that we as men understand that, because whenever you change your behavior and it's different than what it's been, than what people know, they're naturally skeptical. So it's easy for you as a dad to show up once a week and say, I've changed, I'm going to be better. And your kids are looking at you and saying, we'll see. I've heard this song before. We'll see. And so that's the first hurdle you need to overcome, that, whoa, maybe dad actually is changing. And once you get through that, now it starts to get into the realm of building and developing and connecting and all the other things that go along with reigniting the relationship. But let me ask you this. If it never worked out the way that you wanted it to, would you still do what you're doing now? And if the answer is not yes, you've got a deeper problem. If you never connected with your kid and his mom the way that you wanted to, and you feel like, well, if I didn't connect with them, I wouldn't even do this, then I think there's an integrity issue. And I'm not saying that you feel this way, by the way, but I think there's an integrity issue, and I think you really ought to question yourself. Am I doing this because this is what a good man and a good father does? Or am I doing this because I'll be acknowledged and rewarded for it? The latter is inferior motive from where I stand.
And it's inferior because it's fleeting, right? If you need the confirmation constantly and the affirmations from them that you're worth it and you're doing a great job or whatever, then what is it rooted in? Validation, self-gratification, right? Like there's a lot of power, I think, in this circumstance, getting really present to they have choices. And maybe one way to look at this is they may never, Travis, they may never decide to show you gratitude for what you've done. So are you going to still make sure that your kid knows that you love them? Agnostic of that. And if you can get to that, then you can deal with the hardship of it, right? And then I think look for the wins in the other areas, right? Like, am I okay? Make a game out of it, right? Did I make my weekly phone call? Did I do these things? Okay, I'm making progress. I don't need the validation from them to know that I'm doing the right thing, because my objective is not that they'll appreciate and love me. My objective is that they know that I love him. And that's what ultimately matters. It's tough,
I would also say, yeah, it is tough, and I'd also say celebrate the small wins. If your son calls you, that to me is a small little win. Maybe he called and reached out to you.
Yeah.
Even if it was just to ask for permission to go hang out with his buddy, he called you. So that's a win. Maybe he shares a short, small, silly story about something that happened at school. That's a win. As seemingly as insignificant as it is, he feels compelled to share something about his life with you. Or maybe you invite him to go play catch in the backyard, and normally he just wants to watch TV or play video games or isolate, but this time he comes out and he plays with you, and it's only for 5 or 10 minutes. That's a win. Take those. Use that as fuel to say, okay, maybe this is actually working. And 5 minutes of baseball next week might turn into 10 minutes. And the story about his buddy at school might now turn into the story about how he was getting picked on at school. And the fact that he called you might now turn into him initiating, I love you, Dad. You can build it up over time, but just celebrate those small wins, honor, acknowledge what they are. And then remember your response. And this is what I have to remember, is that my response to what is happening is a test. And it might not be something that he is deliberately administering, but it's a test all the same. And if I lose my cool when I'm being tested by one of my children in that way, it's less likely that they will do that or what I'm looking for in the future. So your job is to maintain composure. Your job is to be emotionally regulated. And your job is to show them that they're safe when they tell you things you do want to hear, and also when they say things you don't, that they're safe, because then that gives them permission to be more connected to you the next time around. And I haven't always been that way, and I still fall short in that. But that's something that I'm personally working on with my children.
Got it. All right, Mr. Jenkins, Matthew Jenkins, how do you each manage your time so that you prioritize time with your ladies and each of your children regularly? Life seems to be so good at smothering out any time and consistency in that department for me, so I need to be very intentional.
Yeah, well, first, just don't get bogged down and distracted with nonsense. That is the first thing that you have to do. It is amazing to me
Like
if you just
eliminate nonsense. Yeah.
Absolutely, because that time should be spent. Okay, let me give you an example. If I get on my phone's over there on the stand. If I get on my phone today and I start doom scrolling for the next 30 to 40 minutes, I might convince myself that that's okay because I'm just taking a breather from work or whatever. But I could take that 40 minutes and I could bust my butt at work, so much so that I get more done than I ever have throughout the last couple of weeks. And then what do you think that does when I get home? It spills over into what I do when I get home, because now I'm more present. I'm more satisfied and proud of how I tackled my day, so my attitude changes. Right. When I'm with my children, I'm not thinking about, oh, I forgot to send that email and I didn't have time to do this and this. No, it's because I didn't waste any time, so I know I was as productive as I possibly could have been. And that's what allows me to be present in the moment. And that's what's been helpful for me. And when it comes to time to spend with my children, it's whatever's important to them. I bought this little Honda 1980 Honda Express. It's a little moped. And my son, my youngest son, loves to ride that around with me. So this morning, I got up a little early before our Iron Council call, did a few things, and then that way, as soon as I was done with my call, I could take him on a little ride around the neighborhood. And it was 10 minutes. And it was fine. Last night, I had to go get some groceries, and I kind of needed a little bit of a break. And I think most men can feel this, like when you just need to get away for a second and just have a break from the kids. And so I'm like, I just need like 10 minutes and then I come back and I'm good. And I said, hey, bud, I'm going to run over to the grocery store and get the stuff. And he's like, can I come with you? And then I said no initially. I was like, no, let me just run up. It'll be fast. Let me just take care of it. And then I started to turn around. I'm like, no, he's not going to ask you much more to be doing stuff like that. So you better say yes. And I said, yeah, bud, grab your coat. Let's go. Let's go. And I call that task stacking. So I had to go to the grocery store, but why shouldn't he be there with me when I do that? Now I get my groceries done and I get time with my son. When I got back last night, my oldest was out hitting golf balls into a new golf net that he had got. And so I went out there and I hit golf balls with him. My daughter likes to play soccer. My other son, it seems like I've got a lot. So my other son, he's into lacrosse right now. He loves cars. He loves sneakers. So we talk about those things. I mean, you don't have to give them all the time, but you do have to give them undivided attention. And then the other thing I do, Matt, and this one, guys, if you're not doing this, you need to incorporate this into your life. Every week, once a week, every Thursday at 11:30, I take one of my children to lunch. And I just rotate through. So that means I'm going to lunch just me and them, once per month with my children individually, just with them and me. And I let them choose. And sometimes we go to Subway. I took my daughter to Subway last week, and we were there for 25 minutes. And then I dropped her back off, and that, we had the 25 minutes together. Not a long time, but it matters. It makes a difference. So yeah, I don't need, why would I take lunch by myself if I could take lunch with my kids or other things? So cut out the nonsense, and then there's a few strategies that have worked for me.
Yeah, I love it. One thing that comes to mind for me, Matt, is just getting clear on the price. We kind of talked about this earlier, right? Everyone wants this success, but they're not clear on the cost of it. So what's the cost? And you may have cut out the nonsense. There may have not been any nonsense. Maybe right now it's a bunch of relationships with non-family members because you're great at networking and it's work and it's these other things. What's the price that you're willing to pay to prioritize those other things? And you might have to make a tough call. There's a price for all things. And so maybe it's buddy time, right? Maybe it's hanging out with your pals needs to be diminished a little bit to reprioritize other relationships. But when we find ourselves really busy, especially guys that have already removed all the nonsense, get clear on the price that you're willing to pay and what you're willing to stop doing. So then that way you can execute against it. I think where we fail a lot, Ryan, a lot of guys, is we just work harder. Or I'll just do those things harder. Well, you're being unrealistic. It's not going to work, right? And so what are you willing to give up? And I think there's power in that clarity.
Well, I think also knowing that not everything and everyone deserves the same amount of attention from you. It's just the way it is. And for somebody like Matt, that's going to be hard because he is such a social person and he's a really caring person, but that's the reality of it. Let me give you an example of this in practice. It actually happened to me last night. So we've got a good friend, Jay Jardulo, who's been on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and Kipp, you know him really well. Well, he and his son are starting a podcast, and I didn't like the name of his podcast. I don't think it's conducive to what he's trying to accomplish. So I told him that because I care about those guys. And so I told Jay, I'm like, he needs to change the name of his podcast. And I said, just have him get a hold of me.
I'm super curious what it is.
Yeah, so I said, just have him get a hold of me. So Jay had his son get a hold of me, and initially I was like, okay, I'm going to jump on the phone and I'm going to have a conversation with him. I'm like, I don't have time for that right now. And I wish I did, but I don't. And so I left him a voice memo and I said, hey, here's something I want you to do. Just do this exercise. And the exercise was to identify who he wanted to serve. And I said, when you go through that exercise, then I want you to message me back and tell me who it is you're trying to serve. Now, I did this through a voice memo, so I didn't even get on the phone with him yet. And not that I don't want to, I just don't have the time. So he sends me a message right back, and he's like, mission accomplished, here's the person I'm trying to help. I sent him another voice memo, and I said, okay, now I want you to think about the three pain points, the three greatest pain points this individual, this ideal listener is having, and three solutions to that. Just three, not 5, not 10, just 3. And when you're done with that, let me know. He messaged me back. I haven't had a chance to get back with him yet, but the reason I bring this up is because it's still a way for me to serve him because I care about Jay and I care about his son. They've been to events. I want him to win, but I can only give so much. Otherwise, something else is going to break. And if somebody doesn't understand that, it's not my responsibility. So I can't give him all the attention that I would like. I can't give him the same amount of attention that I want to give to my children because that's what time allows and permits. So we can still be helpful. We can still do what we can, but we have to be smart about it. If another example, if I have 100 men who listen to this podcast and they all start having the same questions over and over again, then what I need to do is I need to put together a podcast on that subject or a white paper on that subject, or a resource or a guide or a book or something. And then I just redirect them to that. That way I'm helping them, which is what I want, but I'm not doing it at the expense of all of my other commitments and responsibilities. There's ways to leverage, and you just need to be willing to explore what they are.
Yeah. And most people understand that. And here's the price if we don't do what you're saying, Ryan, is we will fail in a bunch of those relationships instead. We'll drop the ball constantly. We'll be all over the place. We'll be late everywhere. And you'll generate more damage attempting to appease all of those relationships than you would if you were just clear and concise and established boundaries and communicated to people your proper priorities and what you're willing and not willing to do. They'll respect you more, and you'll probably do a better job in those relationships than trying to juggle them all.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. What's next?
Yeah. Christopher Jackson. Actually, no. Yeah. I'm hand picking some ones because these are really good. Christopher Jackson. Since I've been working on my masculinity and my wife is stuck in hers, it seems like it's adding gas to the fire. How do I take back the masculine energy in the relationship and let her be in her feminine?
I mean, I love this question. It's a great question. And I already think I know what's happening here. And I could be wrong. You correct me if you think I'm wrong, Kipp. He says, since I've been working on my masculinity. So what that leads me to believe is that for a period of time, potentially a long period of time, he was not stepping into his masculinity. And because he didn't step into his masculinity, his wife had to do it. So now his wife is required to be the woman of the house. And now she's also required to be the man of the house. So she's leading, she's directing, she's controlling, she's dictating. And I'm not saying this is bad by any means. She's getting shit done because you weren't. And so she's making decisions and she's organizing everything. And she's the one who's signing the kids up for the teams. And she's the one planning out meals. And she's the one figuring out everything about the vacations. And I know this because I actually used to do this the same way, where my ex-wife was required to make all of the decisions, do all of the things, as long as it didn't have anything to do with work. And so your wife is likely stepping into her masculinity because you weren't. So now that you're stepping into your masculinity, she's like, what the hell? I've been doing this for 10 years.
Swooping in and coaching her.
Yeah. And now you think that you can do it better than me? I've been doing this for a decade. You can't do this better than me. And I know that because you haven't been. And I'm not trying to be harsh in my assumptions here, but I've seen this so many times. So part of what's going to need to happen here is you're going to need to confess. And what I mean is you're going to need to go to her, and maybe you've already done this, and you have to say this. Hey, hon, I know for the past 5 years that I have been absent as the man of the house. And I know that I've failed to lead properly. I don't make decisions. I leave you guessing. I don't communicate clearly with you. I have not casted any vision for what we want for the family and for our kids and for our future. And I imagine that you probably feel pretty lonely. And you probably feel like you're not only having to be the woman, but you're also having to be the man. And I know that what I'm about to tell you, you might have reservations with because of the way that I've showed up. But I want you to know, starting today, I am going to be the man that you need me to be. And here's what I see that looking like. And then you tell her, I'm going to make decisions. I'm going to include you. I'm going to offer resources. I'm going to be emotionally regulated for you. And then here's the key. What would you like to see from me? And you get her feedback. And she might not give you much because she doesn't believe you. And that might be justified. Why should she believe you? You know, I hear this all the time when guys are like, I'm going to start this business, but my wife's not on board. Yeah, because you've said I'm going to start a business 24 times, and all you do is spend the family's money and then lose it all and then get excited about the next bright, shiny object 2 weeks later. So, yeah, pardon me if she's a little skeptical about it. So you communicate this with her, and then you let her tell you what she needs to tell you. It might be a little. She might dump it all on you. I don't know. But your response is what matters. And if she says, you know what? Yeah, you know what? You haven't been present, Christopher. You haven't done these things. You haven't showed up this way. You say, you know what? That's fair. That's fair critique. I accept that. And I'm going to do something about that. And then you go to work on doing what you say you're going to do. But I think a conversation needs to take place if it hasn't already. And a little bit of understanding that, yeah, why would she relinquish leadership to somebody who can't lead? Has proven not to be able to lead the family. Why would she do that? That's threatening. That's risky. That's scary. And probably, based on what you're saying, a little justified. And I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm just trying to give you the reality of it.
Yeah. I think it's sound. Eric Tyler, what inner work should a man do before he can truly show up well in a relationship? Inner work a man should do.
Figure out why you're angry. That's
what
it.
Triggers you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Kipp, like what would you say is, let me think about how to word this. What would you say is the biggest character flaw that men have generally? Just generally, broadly.
Not being expressed. Because I think there's always going to be triggers, right? Like none of us are going to come untainted into relationships. We're going to have stuff that we picked up our entire life, weird nuances, things that make us upset, all kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. I think the flaw is not so much in those things. The flaw is in the unwillingness that when the upset occurs, being expressed around what it was and being aware of it. And maybe say it that way. The willingness to express it, but the willingness to understand it well enough that we express it correctly. Because that's the other problem, right? In the early days of my life, I would have communicated my upset, but my upset, Ryan, was you're the problem. You're making me feel a certain way. Mm-hmm. And so I wasn't even self-aware enough to understand it was my creation. So I think the self-awareness of the trigger and then the willingness to express it in a way so our significant other can understand it. I think that's the biggest flaw.
Yeah, I think I would agree with a lot of that. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. I don't know if it's I think it's kind of in conjunction with what I
the
believe.
Biggest. What do you think?
I think it's just men are angry. I do. I think we're angry, and I don't know. Yeah. I don't know where it comes from for anybody specifically who might be listening to the podcast, but I think that we need to figure out reasons why we're angry. So let me give you an example. Last night, the boys had taken that little moped out, and it was raining, and it leaks a little gas right now until I fix that. That's one thing I need to fix on it. So it's leaking a little gas, and my son put it on the grass. When he got done, he just wheeled it it was on the gravel, but he wheeled it over onto the grass when he was done. And I literally felt my blood start to boil. Like I felt my blood pressure go up. And, I think I was doing the dishes or something, and I, slammed the fork on the counter, and I'm like, and the 10 steps between the kitchen sink and where it goes in the living room, like, what are you doing? Relax. Just relax. So I did. And I said, hey, bud, when you're done with the bike, where do you think you ought to put it? And he's like, in the gravel. I said, yeah, in the gravel where you found it. And he's like, yeah, I did. I'm like, no, you put it in the grass. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought I put it in the gravel. I must have just been distracted. It's not that big a deal. It's really not. But I could feel myself getting agitated. Why? Why are we angry? What is making us so angry? Yeah. Is it a feeling of disrespect? Is it a feeling of overwhelm with all that we have to do throughout the day? Is it a feeling of not being appreciated? Or what I'm saying is the inner work that a man needs to do is get to the root of his anger, his impatience, his frustration, his agitation, and now this goes back to what you said, and I agree, is how do we express those things properly? Because it's okay to be angry sometimes. Yeah. Anger is not the problem. Our response to it could be. So if I'm angry because one of the kids doesn't put something back where it belongs, that should bother me. If it does, and I go punch the wall, I think all of us would say that's an improper expression of anger. But if I say, hey guys, look, we have a lot of nice things. We're blessed with a lot. We're fortunate to have these things. And so we need to take care of them and we need to put them where they go. And we need to keep our house nice and orderly and neat and have things in the right places so we can enjoy the things that we have for a longer period of time. Everybody on board with that? Yep. Good. I just express that in a positive way. Or if, my girlfriend says something and we do have interesting conversations. We both think on a level very similarly, but we don't always agree on everything, which makes it fun and frustrating at times for both of us, I'm sure. But if I yell at her and shut her down, like, how's that going to help the relationship? If on the other hand, I say, I don't agree with that and here's what I believe and here's why, but I can see where you're coming from. We can have disagreements. Yeah. It's the same feeling. It's just a different way to respond to it. And I think once we can do that inner work where we're not just immediately agitated because we don't get our way, that's when you really have the power to be inside of relationships that could potentially benefit you. I will also say this. I don't think you can fully do this on your own. The people that we love the most will trigger us the hardest. And that's one of the best things about a relationship.
Always.
Is with my kids, they know exactly how to trigger me. And I don't think they're always doing it on purpose. Sometimes, yes, but I don't think always. But you know what? Those little humans, even in their triggering, are really, really good for me because it helps me regulate. It helps me deal with triggers. My girlfriend can trigger if she says certain things, and I'm sure I can trigger if I say certain things to her, but that's good. That's an important component of a relationship because she's making me evaluate the way I show up. And I hope I'm doing the same for her. That's how people grow together. So I don't think that you should just isolate and go wall yourself off in some, lake cabin and stay away from humans altogether until you have this all figured out. I think interactions with humans that you care about will actually help you address this if you do it intentionally. Although going up to the mountains and getting lost in the woods sounds pretty good right now.
I'm sure every man listening to this podcast right now has had that thought at one point of, maybe I should just pack up my bag and just, go up into the woods and call it.
Have you ever seen those memes? They're on like Facebook or Instagram, and it's like it's a question, and it's this cabin, and it's in the woods, and it's secluded. And it's like, if I could give you $1 million, but you had to live here for 30 days with no power and no people, what would you do? I'm like, what do you mean? I would do that for free, let alone for $1 million. What are you talking about?
It just proves you that the people who made that meme was a female and not a male. Because every male reads that and go, that's a stupid question.
Oh my God.
Oh man. Wow. One more question. Are you good with one more just really quick?
One more question, then I got a funny story that I was going to share with you. So let's do that.
Okay. All right. We'll make this one quick. And this is actually perfect, right? Because this is in the spirit of don't just disconnect, right? I mean, obviously we can talk about Kirk, right? And his assassination a couple weeks ago, right? Was he willing to just stop having conversation? Right? Or really was his mission around continuing dialogue, right? And discourse when people disagreed. And James Grayson's question is this: we are all really divided in this country along party lines in spirituality. It's gotten to a point where I just don't talk about it with certain people or don't talk to them at all because they shut down the conversation. How can we improve relationships with family and friends who hold different beliefs about God and politics when they are openly rude and disrespectful towards people of conservative Christian faith?
If they're just rude and disrespectful broadly and generally, like it's not your job to be the savior of the world. Like, let them be whatever they're going to be. But if they're doing that in your presence to your wife or your children or you, then not only is it appropriate, it's a requirement that you say something. So if you were saying something, Kipp, in front of my family, my kids, like whoever it might be, I would say, hey, Kipp, I would do this privately first, but I would say, hey, Kipp, I'm raising my kids a certain way, and I really want them to understand that even though people disagree, we can do it civilly and respectfully. But what you said earlier tonight to my children is not acceptable. So please do not talk to them like that, or please do not talk to me like that, or whatever. And that's the boundary. Kipp, we're friends. We're good. After this, we're clear. No issue. But I would really appreciate it if you didn't bring those conversations up and have those types of conversations with my children. Now, if you can respect that, we can still be friends. If you can't respect that, you're out. Because there's boundaries, and your job as a man is to do that. And you know what? If I did that respectfully, I think people would find it I think they'd have more respect for you. I think they'd say, you know what, man, I don't agree with that, but man, Ryan, he stands firm by what he believes.
Appreciate that.
And I would also say to you, Kipp, I'd say, hey, if you want to have a knockdown, drag down fight about it, I'll do that with you, and you and me can do that one-to-one, but we don't do it in this environment. But hey, let's go to lunch Tuesday, and you and I will hash it all out. I'm good with that, but here is how it's going to be handled. Now, if they keep doing it or they're not respectful of your boundaries, those are people that should not be in your life. And I think I have people in my life who I don't have certain conversations with because it's not conducive to my own mental sanity. And in those moments, the only thing I can do is confuse them. And let me help you understand what I mean by that. When people make up a narrative about party lines, spiritual beliefs, tribalism, as we'd call it, they assume that you're going to behave a certain way. You know, for example, somebody who's liberal might make the assumption that conservatives are ruthless or heartless. I think that's safe to say that is a general assumption that could be made about conservatives. But here's where you confuse people, is when you show up with kindness and empathy and love towards your children and respect towards them and other people that you don't agree with, and you show up in a powerful way, it's like a short circuit in their brain. Like, how can this be? Here's this conservative. I don't.
You don't seem like
agree
one of
with him
them
on anything, but he seems like a good dad. He seems like a good husband. He seems like he actually cares about people, and it short circuits their brain, which is what you want, because it gets them to question that maybe our dogmatic tribalist beliefs about people aren't always 100% accurate. So in those cases, you could be a really good example of what a conservative Christian looks like and what it actually means to be a follower of Christ. Not cowardly or passive or weak, but strong and bold and courageous, but also loving towards other people, even if you don't love their choices or lifestyle. Guys, really good questions today. I think we might have a few more to address, and maybe we'll get to those next week, but I'm digging the idea of doing the Ask Me Anythings as topics. So we've done a topic on financial planning. We've done one on daily tracking and goal setting and performance throughout the week. And then, of course, this week we talked about developing and building better relationships. So we're going to keep with the topical theme. I'll let you know what it is next week. Keep asking those questions. In the meantime, if you want to dive deeper into these conversations and you want to be around like-minded men who are all holding each other accountable, who are pressing in the realm of fitness, the realm of finances and faith and family and every aspect of our lives, join the Iron Council. We're open for enrollment, and you can go to orderman.com/Iron Council to watch a short video, learn more about what we're doing, and become a member of this brotherhood.
I want to hear the story.
Oh, that's right. So, okay, the story is wild. So last weekend, my girlfriend and I decided we were going to go ziplining. And her sister and her brother-in-law wanted to do it. In fact, it was their idea. And so we were going to go do it. The four of us were going to go do it together. So we got this locked in about a month ago. And last weekend it was the date. So we go to, I think it's called Deer Creek State Park or something in Midway. You know where this is?
Yeah. I know where Midway is, but yeah.
So we go up there and there's this big zip line thing. And there's like a dozen or 15 zip lines that you just work through a course. And I'm really excited about zip lining. And so we're all having a good time. We're zip lining. We probably do like 7 or 8 different zip lines and we're working through the course and we come to the long one, like the pinnacle, the climax of the zip lining experience. And it's long and it goes over the lake. So it starts at this, like the highest point of the mountain. It goes over this lake. It's really cool. And so they have two lines on this one. So 2 people can go at the same time, one next to the other. And my girlfriend's like, well, I'm going to go on this one. I'm like, cool, I'll go on this one. I'll race you. And she's like, yeah, okay, you're definitely going to win because you're just bigger than I am. And I said, I'll give you a head start. So the lady gets her locked in. The lady gets me locked in and counts us down. She gets a 2 to 3 second head start and she's going. And then it's my turn and I go and I'm not catching up to her. In fact, I'm going pretty slow down this thing, slower than I thought. And she's just gaining distance, more and more distance. And I look up, I kid you not, the clip thing on the cable is smoking and sparking. And I'm
on yours.
On mine. So I'm watching her and she is just screaming down this. She gets to the end and I get right in the middle of the thing and it stops. I'm 150 feet in the air over the lake. And we did a little training. And so when if it stops short, you're supposed to turn around and pull yourself to the platform. Well, I'm probably 300 yards from the platform or more. And I'm trying to pull myself, but the thing is locked. I can't pull myself. Like it is locked up and I am not going anywhere. And I'm dangling over the lake. And I look down and there's a couple guys fishing and they're looking up at me like, what the hell is this guy doing? And I'm dangling, trying to pull myself. I can't get anywhere. I'm like, what? Like, what is happening? So I'm there for like 20 minutes, dangling over the lake at 150 feet on this zip line. I thought I'm going to die on this zip line. And then finally I see a woman, and she comes out. She like wheels herself out to me. She's like, how you doing? I'm like, not good. This is not awesome. And she's like, okay, we're going to get you taken care of here. And she brought all of her equipment out and she switched me over to another clip or whatever. She's like rescuing me in the middle of this thing. And she's like, how good are you at pull-ups? I need you to pull up so I can unclip you and put you on this one. And we're dangling off this cable.
And don't let go.
I'm like, I don't know. Like, we'll find out. And she's like, okay. And so she's like 3, 2, 1. And I pull myself up and I'm, holding on for dear life. And she unclips it and clips it on the other one. And we get back to the thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was horrible. And, my girlfriend was laughing at first, but then she knew that this was serious. So we get back and I'm like, what is happening? I said, that thing is broken. It seized up. And she's like, no, I looked at it when I was up there. The woman at the top of the platform put the carabiners. They reversed the carabiners. So the one that was load bearing, she put it as the safety one, and the safety one, she put it as load bearing. And I was grinding. It was grinding on the cable, and she showed me the carabiner, and it had burned like an indent halfway through the carabiner. So if that would have went a little bit more, that one would have gave way, and I would have been on that safety one. Bro, I almost died ziplining, and and a little embarrassing, and her and I laugh about this because I was rescued this weekend by a woman, and that was ironic and funny and emasculating at the same time.
Yeah, and humbling, dude. That and in 20
Humbling.
minutes, that's no joke. Like 1 minute doing
No.
that would seem forever. 20, you're
Bro, it was
like,
scary.
I'm gonna just die here. Yeah,
I thought I was going to die. I was like, if I fall into this water, because I was over the water, I'm like, at 150 feet,
yeah, 150 feet.
I'm dead. I'm dead. Like I'm not. If this thing goes, I am not surviving this. So good thing you guys didn't see me on the news. Some random guy, plummets to his death, just trying to have a good weekend with the people he cares about. Oh my gosh.
That's wild. That's super wild.
So, anyways,
good thing
guys,
you're alive.
hold your loved ones close because you never know when it's your time to go. We'll just say it that way. And hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully you go fighting a bear or I don't know, something way cooler than falling off a zip line in the middle of the lake.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well,
Awesome. Well, you already
hey,
closed this out, Ryan. We good?
we did. Yeah, great questions, guys. Again, keep them coming. Look at the Iron Council, and then we'll be back next week. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.